Greenblatt, I'm your vice chair. I'm the first time chairing this. I'm calling the meeting to order at 2:40, and with that, we'll do introductions starting with Andy.
Andy Dillard, Town of Danville, SWAT.
John Cunningham, Contra Costa County.
Jerry Fay, Contra Costa County.
Eric Hughes, City of Pleasant Hill, Transpac.
Jason Chen, City of Rinda, SWAT.
Leah Greenblatt, WECTAC.
Kevin Rohani, City of Oakley.
Sean Hatchpeth, County Connection.
Michael Tanner, BART.
Heather Ballinger, City of Walnut Creek, and City County Engineers.
Joel Mercario, City of San Pablo.
Yvette Ortiz, City of El Cerrito, Public Works. WICTAC.
Steve Kowalski, Town of Moraga, SWAT.
That's right. Now I got to talk again. So I haven't received any speaker slips. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak? See none, and soon I get a handoff duties. Is there a motion to approve the summary of actions?
So moved.
Second.
All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Is Paul settled in, or should I keep going there? All right. Is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Move.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes, and I'm handing it off to our chair.
Thank you, Leah. And I'm sorry I'm late. Our next item, project monitoring. Stephanie, you have an update for us.
Thank you. So this is our standing item monthly monitoring report. Just another reminder that the fiscal year 1920 OBAG projects have their RFA due November 1st, 2019. Hopefully you are all working towards getting your field review date so that we can report back to MTC around July or August when they work on the obligation plan that your projects are ready to obligate by November 1st. Also, let me know if there are any programming changes to your project. I've gotten a couple requests to either move projects further out or some requests to move projects earlier. That's usually harder, but let me know if there are any changes about your OBAG 2 projects. And then also, I've updated the HSIP 9 project table. It's on page 3-13. Just note that those with PE funds have an obligation deadline of September 30th, so even earlier than the November 1st. So Concord, County, Pittsburgh, and San Pablo. So the PE funds need to be obligated by September 30th. And I know MTC has been sending emails as well, so just another reminder here. With that, I don't have anything else to report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Questions? If not, thank you, Stephanie. We'll move to the next item. Item 4, the 2020 STIP. That's you again, Stephanie.
Yes. So, yes, here to present on the 2020 STIP. This item needs your recommendation and action. So we are beginning the 2020 STIP process by taking this item to you today. Our project priorities need to be submitted to MTC in October. So in order to meet this deadline, we're recommending issuing the call for projects after the May 15th board meeting. Just a little background on STIP, again, is for those who are unaware, they are updated every 2 years, and each time we add 2 years to a prior programming commitment. So for the 2020 STIP, we'll be adding programming of funds for fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25. And MTC, we're estimating that the funding would be between $20 and $30 million for these 2 new fiscal years. We won't know the exact amount until CTC approves the fund estimate in August. So in your packet, attachment A, page 4-5, is the tentative schedule that we're shooting for. Applications are due on July 12. And we will be seeking to form a subcommittee with volunteers from this group to meet sometime in late July to evaluate the project. And then we will then forward it to APC and authority in September. The process is very similar to the last STIP cycles. One thing that's new is that East County is no longer precluded, so you guys are can compete for the funds. So today we're seeking your recommendation or comments on the screening and scoring criteria, which could be found on page 4-3. I can quickly go down the list so that we're all on the same page. So number one, the project has to be in the RTP. Second, local projects has to be in the CMP. Candidate projects must submit a draft PSR or PSR equivalent with your project application, and then the final PSR has to be submitted to the authority no later than October 4th. The funds being allocated for the phases that you're requesting funding for has to be between fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25. And point number 5, the phases must be fully funded with the requested STIP funds with other committed sources, and current STIP projects cannot seek funding, additional funding under the same phase. The projects have to solve an existing problem related to safety, capacity, and/or operations. Number 7, the STIP funds requested have to be for capital projects or improvements and has to be at least $1 million. The projects have to be on a collector road or above, as categorized or classified in the California Road Systems Map. Number 9, STIP funds are federalized, so you have to go through the Caltrans Local Assistance Project, and you need to allocate the funds through CTC. And number 10, projects that are operational in nature have to show commitments for operations and maintenance for the life of the project. And then we're limiting applications to no more than 2 per jurisdictions. And if you turn to the next page, it's the scoring criteria. There are 6 categories, and they add up to 100. So with that, we're here asking for your recommendation on these 2 criteria, the scoring as well as the screening criteria. And then also we're asking for volunteers to be on the subcommittee to evaluate the projects. We're hoping to convene late July, given that the applications are due July 12th. And so this is compared to the OBAG 2 scoring, this is a lot easier. We grade it all together when we meet. We usually just take care of it in one meeting, one day. We serve you lunch. We all grade it together. There's no homework. You don't bring it home and grade it. I know OBAG 2, there was a lot of work. People had to read a lot of the applications like on their own time. So yeah, hopefully that helps to volunteer your time to help with this evaluation project. And with that, I'll take any questions that you guys may have.
Questions, John?
I have a question and a nomination. Mary Hawley from our Public Works Department would like to participate on the scoring committee. She's not here. Oh, were you going to do that? I'm sorry, Jerry. I'll make it up to you.
So is Mary or Jerry?
Mary Hawley. And then the question is, at first glance, the congestion relief criteria and the SB 375 goal criteria could be in conflict. Can you tell me where I'm missing something on that?
Congestion relief and SB 375. So it's greenhouse gas. I don't think there's.
I'm sorry. I was not trying to be tricky or throw a test out. I guess at first glance, I would say congestion relief to me says capacity expansion. SB 375 is reduction of greenhouse gases. The expansion of capacity inevitably increases greenhouse gases. But I'm happy to be told that I'm misinterpreting.
I'm sorry, John. Are you talking about the screening criteria number 6?
He's talking about the scoring on the page
Oh,
4-4.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
So there's 25 points for congestion relief and then 10 points maximum for the SB 375 goals.
I mean, they're not always in conflict. Sometimes
they could be complementing each other, relieving traffic congestion where traffic is not moving would help air quality in certain areas if you move the traffic. So they're not necessarily in conflict, but this is a criteria we carried over from the last, I think, 2 or 3 step cycles, so we never had an issue with it. So if a situation comes up where they are conflicting, then it's really up to the subcommittee to decide how they want to score that project.
Yeah, and I know one time I served on this committee one time, and there was a couple of projects where it's not in conflict, but it's on one side of the fence versus the other. So we would score higher in one category and less on the other. And of course, the best project on one, they're actually complements for both. Then they kind of score better on both categories, and they're the one that overall scores the best. So it really depends on the nature of the project, the scope of the project.
So yeah, so like if you have a transit extension project, like eBART or some similar project, you're relieving congestion on the freeway, and you're improving air quality by moving people off their cars. So they're not always in conflict, but there are situations where they are, and we will just score the project accordingly in each criteria, and then we compare the totals to see which project is better, basically.
Leah?
I'm wondering, has anything changed from the prior year in terms of the screening criteria or how the points are awarded?
No, we have not. But if you'd like to change them, this is your opportunity. That's why we're here today.
Any other questions?
Yes, I wanted to, for the subcommittee, I wanted to nominate Jason Kaplan, our capital projects coordinator for Oakley.
That'll take care of transplants.
But is Mary
Volunteer.
transplant or
She
WIC-TAG or
county?
Yeah, I'm sorry, are there categories for nominations? Yeah, whatever you need her to be.
volunteers from each RDPC and then 2 from transit?
I had
should
a
have said
question and a nomination. Just a question. The 20 to 30 million, is that just for CCTA region, or is it MTC wide?
No,
Just us.
Oh, just
Contra Costa.
Okay. And then I would like to nominate Leah to serve on the selection committee.
Thank you. I accept that nomination.
Do you have any other questions? Yes.
I'd like to nominate Eileen Hernandez from BART to be on the committee, please. Thank you. Not yet.
Anyone from TransPAC? Well, I don't know.
When do you need
I'm
to
just
know?
counting.
When do you need to know the volunteers? Do you need to know today, or can we have a couple of days to?
It's probably
the word.
unlikely we'll get what we need today, but just before July.
Before July? Okay. I'll bring it back to TransPAC and see volunteers before we. I mean, I can always pick names, but.
We can do that at WIC-TAC too, if there's time.
Yeah, same for SWAT. We'll have to bring it back. So.
And the committee, you wanted 2 representatives from each RTPC?
And 2 from transit. So I don't know if there's anyone from County Connections or even
we could
Tri
take a
Delta.
look as well. Yeah, us or Tri-Delta. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll report back, yeah.
Did you have a question? No. Oh. I actually had a question about the screening, on the screening criteria, number 4, funds must be allocated between 23 fiscal year and fiscal year 24. Is that the same as being spent?
No.
No, okay. Just make sure they're allocated by those fiscal years.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So are we all set? Eric?
Yeah, just one last question for me. So we go through this application process, you're going to potentially get some transit applications, some roadway/freeway applications. You're going to score them, you're going to rank them. Are they ultimately going to be just all lumped together in terms of overall ranking, mixing between the two? Okay. So there's never been any thought about splitting, well, like, yeah, in a way, the top 3 roadway projects and also the top 3 transit projects versus just. And the reason I'm asking is because I think in the past, just if it hasn't changed, the scoring and the formula hasn't changed. If I recall, I believe the transit applications typically score higher than the roadway projects, just because they don't have as much. It's easier for them to get the full 1.0 multiplier. Versus the roadway, it depends on ADT and collision, which unless you have project on the worst street imaginable, you never get the full. You always get reduced a little bit on the multipliers, and so.
It's really up to the committee if they want to add any requirements or additional. But in the past, the criteria to scoring them is, of course, a little bit different because you have different input from different projects. And at the end, the projects with the high score were funded based.
Right.
We couldn't split them up front because we don't know how many applications we're going to get from transit versus roadway, and then you have intermodal stations. Are they really transit or are they kind of roadway? And what do you do about pit bike projects if you submit some of those? So we try to avoid this because of this reason. It's just we don't know what we will get. I mean, maybe we can just find out from everybody if they have ideas of what they're going to submit for the step cycle. But it just introduces a lot of unknowns, given at this point we don't know the mix of projects we're going to get. Having said that, it's up to you guys if you want to discuss it.
There we go. Is there any desire to look at the scoring criteria?
I just had a question about which projects got funded last cycle.
Okay.
Do you know, Hisham?
680, no, it was the operation improvements on Highway 4, one of the phases, 684. Yes. And Central.
I-80 Central, the right-of-way phase, the Highway 4 operation improvements, the design phase, and 684, the construction phase.
Yeah, is there any transit?
No, I don't think we got much applications in transit, but we can go back and check. Yeah, and just FYI, you probably need to know whether the authority is planning to submit any applications. We're contemplating probably a couple projects. 684 phases 1 and 2. We have received $210 million in RM3. Not received. We have funds identified in RM3 for that project. And we think we're going to be short maybe $30 million to fully funding it. So we might ask for that amount for the construction phase. Also, the other one is Highway 4 operational improvements to do improvements in the westbound direction. We may ask for some money to do the environmental phase. We have not, of course, made up our mind on the projects or the amounts, but that's just to give you an idea of the competition, basically.
Thank you, Sham. Is there any other questions? No? Leah?
Do you remember last time when we were doing this? Did we have any complaints or were we upset at the end of the process? Is there anything that I don't remember, quite honestly, so
We never have complaints.
yeah, no, I realize.
No, I think I don't recall getting any complaints. I think at one point our board members, one of our board members, basically wanted more points he wanted to add complete streets to the criteria, and he wanted to basically take out some of the points to put in that category. That didn't happen, that there wasn't a consensus to do that on the board, but that was one of the issues that I recall. In terms of the committee, we never leave the room without consensus, and we rarely have any complaints.
Thank you, Sham. Didn't sound like there was support. Any other questions, comment? Yes.
I have a nomination for the Evaluation Subcommittee.
Great.
John Mercurio from Transpac.
Great. Oh, fantastic. All right.
Wait, sorry, one quick question. Does it have to be staff? Because John is not a staff member on Transpac. He's a planning commission on the Transpac board.
Oh. Staff. Oh. Okay, any other questions? If not, can we get a motion? Anyone want to make a motion? We need a motion to accept the scoring and screening criteria as well as, well, that's the first motion. Anyone?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so we have that, and then our volunteers will continue to work on that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next item is reconvening the GMP Growth Management Program Working Group. And I guess that'll be Matt.
Thank you, Chair Reinders. Good afternoon, committee members. Matt Kelly, CCTA. So we're here with a proposal to reconvene the Growth Management Program Subcommittee. It was actually, I'm not calling it a subcommittee. It is a working group because it won't be subject to Brown Act rules. It will be an informal committee working group. But it was last convened 6 years ago or so to guide the development of the last countywide plan update. And I was going to put the roster in the packet, but the roster was so decimated from folks retiring and going elsewhere that it wasn't even worth the paper it was printed on. So that's kind of why we're here today. But just to frame the reasons for reconvening the GMP working group are that the main driver is the change in transportation evaluation under CEQA as resulting from the passage of Senate Bill 743 back in 2013, which will, after many years of revisions and outreach, is going to be implemented for everyone statewide July 1st of 2020, a little over a year from now. You might remember last month, Martin Engelman was here presenting the outcomes of our 5 planning directors seminars, which focused on this paradigm shift from away from level of service to VMT as the metric to be used for analyzing transportation impacts in CEQA. We looked at the issue from 5 different lenses over those 5 meetings. Many of you were at least one of those meetings. And basically, we were given some recommendations from that group on how CCTA could support the jurisdictions and agencies in Contra Costa on implementing the change in from level of service to VMT. It affects a lot of different things from the way you would do a transportation impact study to general plan amendments and your circulation, specifically the circulation element of your general plan, and just really changes the whole way we look at transportation impacts. So we expect that we will have to update our technical procedures, since that provides methodologies for those traffic impact studies, the general plan amendments, and also the growth management program implementation guide, which will affect many chapters in there. We plan on providing resources for the jurisdictions, and that may range from preparing VMT maps. We're going to be looking for guidance on that, because it's all about average VMT in an area, whether you're meet that threshold or are above or below it, and coming up with geographies and thresholds that make sense, something that works certainly for MTC in the region is not going to work in Napa County or most parts of Contra Costa County. Something that works in the transplant area is probably not going to fit in WCTAC. So there's a lot of issues where we will need your guidance. We have consultants on board to help us through the process, but we're going to want representatives from our local agencies to help us guide that and provide recommendations there as we work through this process. We plan on having 4 to 5 meetings over the next year or so. As I mentioned, we have about 15 months to implement the changes under SB 743, so we'll be using most of that time to do that, and like I said, probably about 4 to 5 meetings during that period. Also, as for the STIP, we don't expect there to be any homework. So basically, I won't promise any meals, but I'm sure we will, depending on the time of day that we convene, we will make sure you don't go hungry or thirsty. So basically what we're looking for today is a recommendation to actually reconvene this working group, and then we're also looking for more volunteers. What we're looking for is at least one representative from each sub-region, and we say sub-region because we want representatives from the La Miranda area as well as the SWAT area. And we're also asking the RTPC managers to participate. We'll also take volunteers from transit agencies, Caltrans, things like that. I think all would have, worthwhile input to the process. We're also taking this out to the RTPCs. It went to SWAT TAC yesterday. We'll be taking it to Transpac TAC next week, and the rest of the RTPCs following. So if we don't get volunteers today, we'll be relying on the RTPCs to provide those volunteers. But, so over the next month or so, we'll hopefully get at least, like I said, a member from each sub-area to help guide this. It's not a huge group. It's a relatively small group, we expect. And when we first brought SB 743 issue to you, a year or so ago, we mentioned reconvening this group, and I believe Leah had expressed some interest at the time. I don't know if, and also we had Jamar Stamp's name written down. I'm not sure if that came from him or from county staff, but we would actually want Jamar to participate as a RTPC manager. So those are the only two names I had. Whether we get those names on, or are still interested at this time, we'll see. So that's my presentation. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions?
Yeah, so did you want RTPC managers represented as well as local staff from each RTPC?
Yeah, so the RTPC manager in addition to at least one local staff member.
Okay, then I would continue my interest.
Thank you, Leah.
Yay.
Any other volunteers or questions? Yes, John.
A question and a nomination. I'll nominate myself from the county, and then I forgot my question. So the timing of this review suggests that it might inform whatever growth management changes might be suggested in a transportation expenditure plan. Is that the intent?
It wasn't we would do this no matter what, but as someone who was at the authority meeting last night, as John was, there is going to be some discussions on a TEP in the next several months, and as if anybody was paying attention last time, the GMP was a big part of that, so I would expect those discussions would probably come to this group, at least to discuss. But there's going to be other committees that would probably vet that as well.
I guess I was trying to avoid the situation that happened last time where we put the group together to reform kind of the growth management program guidelines, and then CEQA up and changed, and so we converged, and then we split back up again. And I know you want to avoid that as well. Don't want to.
Yeah, right now we're focused on SB 743 and the growth management program implementation documents. But like I said, we other things could make their way in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'll volunteer.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
That's good.
WICTAC seems to be taken care of.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a question, Matt. Have we decided to, as far as our CCTA technical procedures, to abandon the level of service criteria, or is that still to be considered or to be decided?
So, level of service is still allowed under SB 743 for, if it's something that's documented in your planning documents, your general plan, and so forth. So we would expect we could probably leave it in the appendices in terms of if you're going to do level of service analysis, this is the methodology. We've kept our CCTA LOS methodology in even after we migrated to HCM 2010. So I would expect we'll probably keep something in there for people who are doing kind of the dual analysis.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Andy.
I'd like to volunteer with a caveat there will be two of us from South County, if that's not an issue, since Lisa is the RTPC manager.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you, Andy.
For the La Miranda groups, we're working together right now to figure out who will be the person, so we'll get back to you on that. Thanks.
Same thing for Transpac.
And when do you need to have these volunteers by?
I would expect at the end of our visit to the RTPCs in the next month to 6 weeks, we'll want to finalize it. We haven't scheduled a meeting yet.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Matt. Any other questions? Oh, do we need action?
To actually reconvene the group, yeah.
Yes. Do we have a motion to reconvene the group?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Matt. And do we have any other business? Item 6?
Yes, under
Michelle.
other business, if I can just take a minute. Matt mentioned that if you followed our board meeting yesterday, the board actually accepted a report from the staff on potential work plan and schedule for developing a new transportation expenditure plan. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware we're starting the process. We will be going to the RTPCs. They basically decided to form a committee of the whole to develop the expenditure plan. So it's going to be called, I think, the Expenditure Plan Committee, and will include all the board members on it, the authority board. They also, we are currently planning for polling, to do some polling in May, and hopefully we'll have some results at the May 15th board meeting. We were hoping to find out whether we should be going in March or in November of 2020. And if it is in March, that means we really need to have the board approve the final TEP by August of this year to make all the deadlines to put it on the March ballot. We get few more months if it's on the November ballot. So just FYI, heads up that there will be a lot of work coming your way through the RTPCs since most of you sit on the tax, and we will be seeking input on a new TEP. We will probably be presenting the RTPCs with what was included in the prior TEP for Measure X, the list of projects we just we're currently working on for the RTP. So that's basically the financially constrained list, as well as the polling results, so you can figure out what to recommend to be included in the TEP. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions. I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer them, but you can ask away if you have questions.
Questions? Leah?
What was the nature of the discussion related to March versus November?
They want us to be prepared for the March ballot, so until we find out otherwise, that it's better to go on the November ballot. The reason they're talking about March is because of the Democratic turnout at the March ballot, because of so many candidates for the presidents.
So do we have any idea of when we'll have a decision, whether it'll be March or November?
Probably end of May.
End of May?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we
Another
go
month.
to the RTPCs, I don't think I mentioned this, we will need your input basically by the end of July.
I have a follow-up question. For the polling, are the questions going to be different than the focus groups, and how can we influence that? Because I know for the West County one that there weren't any questions about the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge.
So there is actually one of the actions the board took yesterday was to give the authority to the chair to appoint a subcommittee from a member of each subregion, 4 or 5 members basically, to help guide and provide input on the polling questions.
Right.
So we will bounce that off that subcommittee to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Do you know who represents WICTAC on that subcommittee?
It'll either be Tom or Janet.
Oh, so they didn't make a decision yet.
Not yet.
Will transit be part of that committee?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure what plans. It was discussed, but I don't know what was the final decision.
So, can I ask a quick question? I remember with Measure X, there was a lot of debate early on about the local share and some of those, those kind of projects, not the big stuff.
That's right.
Was that discussed at all? Or are we recreating that wheel, or are we going to start where we ended up with Measure?
It was not discussed. As you recall, the local streets and roads, the return to source amount in the last measure, in Measure X, the one that didn't pass, was about 23%. After a lot of discussion with the PMA group, I think the plan is to go back to the PMA group and revisit that issue, given that SB1 has passed now, which provides some funding to the cities. So I think we will be discussing it again with the PMA group. I'm not sure whether it'll stay or be increased or reduced. That's going to be decided later. Okay. I think I shocked everybody. All right.
A lot of work to be done. All right, if no other questions or comments, we'll adjourn to the next meeting in May 16th. Thank you all.
Can you show me